Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most popular cartridge of them all? It's this guy. Ranked by really every metric you can come up with, the most popular rifle cartridge is the Humble 22 long rifle. Now you could probably guess that, and I bet you could guess what number 2 is as well. Number 2 is, of course, the 223 Remington 5.56. Those two are very popular, one because they're much less expensive to shoot, but also you usually are buying them in bulk. You know, you might buy 22 LR by the 1,000 or more. And then we get into the centerfire cartridges, and that's where I think this gets interesting. So recently I was talking with a few guys that are, you know, major distributors, major retailers across the US. Between those companies, I mean, like, over half of all ammo in the US is going through them. And so I asked him, I said, hey, what are your most popular cartridges ranked by ammo sales? So we're going to show those numbers, but that's not the only way to determine what the most popular cartridges are. What about ranked by Google search volume? And also the most common chamberings for new rifles going out the door right now. Well, we got all the data, so let's talk about it. We're gonna go from 10 to, I guess, 2, because we already saw 1 and 2. So going in at number 10 is this guy. The 30-06 Springfield is number 10 for ammo sales in the US. I'm honestly surprised that it's not a little bit higher than that. But I think the reason that it is kind of dropped down to number 10 is depending where you live in the country. You know, in Utah and Idaho, I rarely see 30-06 rifles even for sale. Ammo everywhere because there's so many existing rifles, but I rarely see a 30-06 for sale. A recent trip to caribou hunting in Alaska, they have a lot more 30-06 on store shelves there for new rifles. We aren't getting as many adopters into the rifle platform, despite the fact that it's an incredible cartridge. Look at the numbers for it. I mean, it's a lot of recoil if you're using grandpa's old rifle with the, you know, old school recoil pad and everything. Sometimes people feel like the 30-06 is a wallop because those are the rifles they shot it in. But if you put a 30-06 in a modern stock with a decent recoil pad, you know, like the backstop recoil pad. No, but seriously, if you do, like, a 30-06 is pretty mild and really packs a punch. You can hunt everything with it. There's a lot of love for the 30-06. Coming up next is the 243 Winchester. Super low recoil on the 243. It's just an excellent deer cartridge, very flat shooting, and you know, for people taking out youth hunters, this has commonly been the cartridge of choice. But a lot of people now are moving to the 6.5 Creedmoor for reasons. Maybe just because that's what's for sale on the shelves. Okay, before we get into this next run, I want to thank SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute, for being our title sponsor. SDI is the place to go to learn gunsmithing skills. Go to sdi.edu/backfire and get some information to see if it could be a good option for you. Moving up is the number 1 cartridge if we were to rank it by favorite. We talked about this in a recent video on Backfire. We surveyed 880 of you guys and just said, what's your favorite hunting cartridge? And this was the winner by far. Number 7 in ammo sales is the 270 Winchester. 20% of you guys said that was your favorite cartridge. And there are good reasons. You know, if you're wanting a cartridge that's reasonable to just go shooting on a Saturday and you want to go crush some steel at long range, the 270 is perfect for that. And it is a little bit bigger of a caliber than, you know, your 6.5s. That, you know, you're getting that more frontal diameter as you're going through an animal. It's widely available. It's inexpensive. 270 has to be one of the best cartridges out there, and that's why it's showing up so well on ammo sales still. Then we get to the big guns. Whenever I want to hunt something and I just want it dead, and I want it dead right now, it's the 300 Win Mag. 300, the 30 cal cartridges, I don't care what anybody says. You know, so many people are kind of, the fad these days is, oh, the caliber doesn't matter. Just, you know, all that matters is you put the bullet in the right place. And I say, when I hear people say that, I always think like, maybe you haven't been hunting in the same places that I have, or the same experience. I don't know, because you can see a visible difference in an animal that's hit with a cartridge that has some real authority. There are always anomalies, but man, a 300 Win Mag, the 30 cal cartridges just kill different. That bigger diameter on that bullet, I believe, makes a very big difference. Now, 300 Win is going to be a lot of recoil, but again, things are changing with recoil in rifles, because it used to be that few rifles had muzzle devices. And now most everybody has a muzzle device, either a suppressor or a muzzle brake on their rifles. And because of that, a lot of these heavier hitting cartridges are becoming popular. Now, the only confounding factor there is rifles are also getting really lightweight. And in order to make the rifles really lightweight, we're seeing thinner and thinner and thinner profile barrels. And so it can be tougher to get the accuracy with the big magnums in a thin profile barrel. And then this guy. I'm amazed by this cartridge, because when you look at the popularity online, just Google search volume, this is beating the 7 PRC handily. And that is the 6.5 PRC. 6.5 PRC is just a Magnum 6.5 Creedmoor. You know, you're going to get 200 to 250 feet per second more velocity, but look at the numbers comparing the two. Look at a 6.5 Creedmoor compared to a 6.5 PRC. And you see, like, okay, that's pretty compelling. We do have a jump up in recoil, whatever it is, I think about 4 foot-pounds extra recoil energy, maybe 5. You look at, you know, your 400, 600 yards, the drop and the wind drift, and you say, oh man, there's a real case for that. You know, if you're, you know, whatever, 300 yards on a caribou hunt and there's a crazy 15 mile, 20 mile an hour Alaskan wind, you're going to have a lot more confidence in taking that shot if you have something like a 6.5 PRC that's just shooting that bullet out pretty fast. You know, Garrett and I, before we recorded this video, we were just sitting here talking about what the ultimate cartridge would be, like Wildcat, anything. And I think you have to break it into 2 categories. But one that we were looking at is, man, something like a 25-06, or maybe we take a 6.5 PRC and neck it down to 25, do a 25-6.5 PRC. That, like, if you could send Hornady's new, what is it, 128 grain ELDX with a pretty high BC for that 25 caliber, man, that would be amazing. Like, these are the numbers that I think you could reasonably get with a 25 PRC. Whew. That looks awesome. You could also do similar with a 25-06. And that's when we're like, ooh, that's really the only thing I'm seeing that could be that next step in ballistics above the 6.5 PRC. A 25 could be kind of interesting there. All right, moving on. Next, we have, love it or hate it, the 7 PRC. In terms of the rifles flying off the shelf right now, 7 PRC is crushing. It's crushing. I mean, when I go look at store shelves, it's 7 PRC everywhere. And for good reason. I mean, it has very impressive resistance to wind, and the energy it carries, it is true elk medicine. Phenomenal. You guys have seen us on the channel shooting it in lots of different rifles. And the thing that I would say about the 7 PRC is, don't just be taken in by the numbers. Make sure you have a rifle platform to match it. In a skinny little barrel and a very lightweight rifle, we have just not found it to be a compelling cartridge. It just doesn't, the recoil's too much in some of those platforms, and some of them, just the vibration of a Magnum leads to inconsistencies, and we're just not getting the accuracy that we would love to see. But the cartridge itself is phenomenal. You just have to have the right platform to kind of match it. And then this guy. You can't skip this one. This is the 308. Number one reason to shoot a 308 for me is the cost of the ammunition. It's just a little bit less in 308 to just have your range day. Also, depending on the load you pick, you know, it's going to reach out to as far as you'd want to hunt anyway. You get the advantage of the larger caliber, that's just a bigger cutting surface going through that meat. And there are rifles for it everywhere. It's an inherently accurate cartridge, which generally I would consider a cartridge to be inherently accurate when it is a little bit sub-magnum. Like if we have a kind of standard of velocity and energy out of a cartridge for each caliber, and then you have the magnum, whatever sub-standard is, just slightly, that's where I usually see the best accuracy. You know, the 6.5 Creedmoor, perfect example of that. Extremely inherently accurate. It's just that step down. You know, we see rifles in, you know, 7 PRC, and in many platforms, if you step down to something like a 7 SAUM, a 280, something like that, I think in general you're going to see better accuracy. And so that's what I love about the 308. But it's interesting that number one and number two, 308 is number two in these, according to these numbers, and the number one, the king of centerfire hunting cartridges, at least by the numbers, 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, that's by ammo sales. It's also by Google search volume, and it's also by chamberings available in new rifles. The 6.5 Creedmoor is absolutely killing. Right now, over 13% of rifles that are out there are 6.5 Creedmoor, of new rifles hitting the market. That is a lot. For a cartridge that everybody loves to dunk on, and yet it just keeps moving. It just keeps selling. I think the reason is it's such a good, it's inexpensive ammo, high BC, which a lot of people want, low recoil, which a lot of people want. It's great for hunting deer. I don't think anybody could even claim that a 6.5 Creedmoor isn't enough for deer. It's a great deer cartridge. And for those reasons, and the other one that I don't know if all the consumers realize, but the 6.5 Creedmoor is incredibly inherently accurate. Like, I don't know that another cartridge really compares in inherent accuracy to that 6.5 Creedmoor for the reasons that we just talked about. It's awesome for that. A couple honorable mentions, 7mm 08 and 300 PRC just narrowly didn't make the top 10 there. So those are your most popular cartridges, internet. What say ye? What should be more popular but isn't, that should be on these lists? Love to hear it in the comments. Thanks everybody for watching this video, and then we'll see you in the next one.